Hi everyone, this is Rob from Practical Tactical, and today we're taking a quick look at the Swampfox Justice micro reflex sight. Just a quick note before we get going, this is the third pistol red dot review I've done, along with the 407C and 407K. I'll link those reviews in the description below in case you're interested in checking those out. The Justice is one of Swampfox's two more recent red dot offerings along with the Liberty. The Justice differs from the Liberty in that it has a larger window, otherwise the two are pretty much the same, and everything I say about the Justice today, feature-wise, is going to apply to the Liberty as well. The Justice is what I would consider a full-sized red dot optic with dimensions that are very similar to the Holosun 47C that I just reviewed. It measures 1.78 inches long, it's 1.24 inches wide, and 1.04 inches tall. It's got a 3 MOA dot, and that's projected onto this 27mm window, and it has 10 levels of brightness adjustment. It's IPX7 water resistant, which means that it'll survive under a maximum of 1 meter of water for a maximum of 30 seconds. It uses the same footprint as the Trigicon RMR, and it weighs an ounce without the battery. The body of the optic itself is made of 7075 T6 aluminum, and it has a glass window with a coating on there. The Justice carries an MSRP of $240, but you can almost always find it for less than that. I've got mine for $200 at Brownells. The Justice comes packaged in a regular cardboard box, and opening that up, inside you'll find the optic itself, obviously. We've got some support information, user manual, got a cleaning cloth here. We've got this Swampfox branded tool, which allows for installation of screws. I did notice that it doesn't include any way to actually adjust the turrets on there, so that's worth it to note. You've got not one, not two, but 3 sets of screws for mounting the optic, none of which I used. And a nice bonus is they give you this rubber cover, which goes over the optic. I actually cut this out so that it'll sit on the optic while it's mounted on a slide. The way I had it, or at least on my slide, it wouldn't sit on there without the cuts, but it's nice that they throw that in there. Also in the box is a single CR1632 battery, which powers the optic. The battery loads from the top of the optic here under this little cover, and I like this. This is one of my favorite features about the optic because it lets you replace the battery without having to dismount the optic. And not having to dismount the optic also means not having to re-zero it whenever you change batteries. The Justice is rated by Swampfox to deliver 1 year of real-world use. This is different from how other manufacturers rate their optic battery life, but I like this rating actually. Instead of giving a battery life rating and a certain brightness setting for a certain amount of time, they just tell you that it'll last a year, which is when you should be replacing your optic battery anyways. Side note, before we move on, have you replaced your optic battery yet this year? If not, pause the video, go do that now, come on back. One feature that the Justice has that I love is the shake awake feature. This means that the optic turns off automatically after a certain amount of time to save the battery, but as soon as it senses any small movement, it turns back on. If you watch the 407K and 407C videos, you already know that I love this feature. I actually think I love it so much that I probably wouldn't buy a pistol optic without this in the future. Anyways, in practice, I found this feature to be surprisingly sensitive. It passes the Practical Tactical table tap test with flying colors. In everyday use, I've never picked this up from a table or pulled it out of a holster or anything and the reticle not been on, so A+ there, Swampfox. The reticle itself is a 3 MOA dot, and that's available in either red or green, and it's got 10 levels of brightness adjustment. Let me see if I can get it on camera here. There we go. Very faintly there. The Justice, again, has 10 levels of brightness adjustment, and in everyday use, I keep it around a 6 or a 7. You can also shut off the optic completely by holding down the plus button here. The Justice has 2 turrets for adjustment, one for elevation on top and one for windage on the right side here. Swampfox says that there's a total of 45 MOA of windage adjustment and 90 MOA of elevation adjustment available. They don't specify a per click MOA rating, which I thought was kind of interesting. As far as initial zeroing of the Justice, I mounted it and torqued down the screws, and then since I have suppressor height sights on the front and back of this slide, I kind of cheated a little bit and just lined up the dot so that it was sitting basically right on top of the front sight. And just as a side note, this is why I always recommend having backup iron sights on your slides, because it makes zeroing pistols very, very easy. Once I had it mounted and kind of roughly sighted in, I took it to the range, and it only took a few clicks of windage adjustment. I think I was off to the left a little bit. I just put a couple clicks in it, and I was right on target. I've lived with the Justice for a few years now. It doesn't really see any rugged use or severe use since it primarily lives on this range toy Polymer 80 build, but I can say that it's gone almost 1,000 rounds without any issues. I do know that there are people who have experienced problems with Swampfox Justice or Liberty models, but I, for one, have had none. There's no flickering, no fading of the dot, no coatings of the window rubbing off, no weird glue issues around it like a lot of people have noted. I'm just the one user, and this is a sample size of one. This is one unit out of thousands or tens of thousands that they've sold, so take this with a grain of salt, obviously, but I can say that if and when I do have an issue, I'm confident that Swampfox will be there to back up their product with their customer service. They have got a good reputation from what I can determine, and I'm pretty comfortable in sending this back if ever applicable for service. Overall, I'm not quite ready to say that I would put this on one of my home defense or carry weapons, but I do know that it does exactly what I bought it to do, which was to mount on a range toy, maintain zero, and basically sit there and look good. So that's my quick review of the Swampfox Justice. I think it's a great pistol optic at a great price. If you're interested in picking one up, check the description for the link to the Justice at Brownells, where it's currently selling for under 200 bucks. Also check the description for a link to the blog where I have more practical content just like this. On your way out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and until next time, stay safe.